Anna, good girl, how the fuck is you doing today? That's what I need to know. How
Uh,
is you-
I'm amazing now that I'm here with you.
look,
Point blank, period.
look at you trying to game me up. See, energy like that is the reason why I sometimes contemplate letting a lesbian fuck me in the ass because y'all have got the game is on point, the words are on point. Y'all are so damn suave. I'm like, oh, almost. Y'all know that. Y'all know that. Look, I'm just like, ain't no calm in there, and I like a good load of calm in my ass. Okay.
We don't got that. We don't got that. We got a lot of other things, though. We got a lot of other things.
Although they have those dildos now where you can put something like different juices or whatever in them, and then it'll squirt it into whatever hole you want. So,
Hello. My homie is actually creating this really amazing strap. Her business is called VDOM. Y'all should check it out. VDOM. She was on television recently for a pitch competition. Like it's like mechanical. So it's not hard all the time. So you hit a button, it gets hard on the whim. It's like from an app. So you don't gotta go and like, yo, it's legit stuff. It's good stuff.
so it's a plastic dick that can go from levels of softness to hard.
Yeah. But the press of a button
I ain't seen that before.
is next level.
That sounds real.
It is.
Okay, y'all. So Anna DeShawn is a bad bitch. She is the creator of an app called the Qube. She hosts the E3 radio station and everything like that, and she considers herself to also be a social entrepreneur. And so in this show, we're going to be talking about what the Cube is, how this benefits the LGBTQIA2S plus community, the alphabet mafia, as I like to call us, because we will fuck a bitch up if we have to. We don't want to, but sometimes y'all just make us pull a Will Smith on a bitch and just
Necessary, okay? Sometimes it's necessary.
I don't think he should have done it, but I'm not here to judge him. I still suck his dick right now and buy tickets to his movie, but we will not be slapping the body on the
Yeah, I don't know what he was thinking. I think he thought it was recorded. I think he forgot it was live. That's what I think.
been to so many of them things. It's just like he's sitting at his kitchen table.
Mhm, mhm. I think he forgot it was live. I think he thought they were gonna be able to edit that out.
Mhm. So we'll be talking about what the cube is. It's a new thing specific for our community and people of color and things like that to help us with podcasting, getting our creative arts and media out there. Then we're going to talk about Anna's history. She has a lot of history with the church and the church
Church.
bullshit. There's so much bullshit in the church is unreal. And so, what you got to say about your own history? Tell us about you.
Child,
Just a rundown, just a quick rundown.
quick rundown, south side of Chicago, born and raised. I consider myself a social entrepreneur who builds platforms, digital platforms that celebrate and center Black, brown, and queer folks of color. I love my people and I love the power that media has to actually create some change, some meaningful change, to humanize people's stories and experiences. And I think that we have the power to shift that, if we tap into it. And since 2009, I've been interviewing Black queer folks to raise awareness around our stories out of Chicago. And I've always been into media. Let's be clear, Robin Roberts is everything to me. Okay. I wanted to grow up and be just like her on ESPN or doing some play by play announcing, but it became very clear that people don't look like me on television. They're not masculine or center folks reporting the 10 o'clock news. Okay. But radio allowed for me to speak to folks without folks having to see me. And that is a very powerful thing. And I realized like I really love this. So I got into radio, which of course leads you into podcasting. And then I just saw the same things that were happening in traditional media was happening in podcasting. Like, where are my Black people at? Where are my brown people at? Where are my queer folks of color at? Like, why is it that when I go to Apple and Spotify and all these places, like I can't find my people? And I wanted to change that.
Well, it is a noteworthy thing you're doing, and I can tell you have sense enough to understand that this is something that takes time. This is a long-term dedicated process that's going to take, a long, long time to see come to fruition. Hopefully you see it in your generation, but you know, these things take time. So I appreciate that you're laying this foundation here, for generations to come. I can see it in 100 years, you know, when you dead and gone, somebody's gonna have a very successful show, you know, public broadcast and everything like that. You're gonna be like, we want to thank again DeShawn for the work he did back in 2009 to make this day possible for me in 3050 or whatever the case may be.
Crazy. That's unbelievable. Let me tell you, but I do say this, that I do see the radio station and what we're building with the Cube as being far bigger than myself. I feel like, and I think we can connect on this on a spiritual level. Like, we're here because we're called to do something. And when you tap into your call, it is bigger than you because you're just a vessel for the work. And you've been given some gifts and you've been called to use them. And so I feel like I'm called to use these gifts in this way. Everything about me says I'm about systematic changes, about changes that can affect masses amount of people. And that's what I'm called to do. Some folks is called to be in the streets activating, some folks is called to do one-on-one work and change people's lives one by one by one. And I feel like I've been called to change folks' lives through media in a massive amount of ways. And so I'm excited about what the Cube is going to be to the world of podcasting. I'm excited what it's going to be for discoverability. Today, 43% of people listening to podcasts actually identify as people of color. And there's no place that is serving those folks and the discoverability of those folks. And there's so many people like you creating amazing content, raw content, authentic content, quality content. And more people need to know, you know what I'm saying, about sex, drugs, and Jesus. Come on.
Okay. We don't want to go down that rabbit hole. It's a tight, deep hole. And trust me, many have gotten stuck in it.
I love you.
So I love you too, baby. So one of my favorite things about you, so we're going to talk about Anna for a little bit and get into her personal story, which tells us a lot about why she's doing what she's doing. And then we're going to get very granular and talk very specifically about what the Cube is, where you can find it, who is this for, podcasters, people who want to go on shows, what sort of content you can find there, and all of that. So when I was reading through your bio and everything like that, and researching you as I do, I found that your pronouns, you don't have like he, she, they, whatever. You said anything respectful. And I admire the open-mindedness of that and the flexibility of that. It reminds me a lot of myself because when people ask me who I am sometimes, I like to refer them to the Torah, to the old Hebrew scripture when Moses was first called by God and he had his slippers off on the side of the mountain and God was in the burning bush. And Moses was like, God, who is you? Who are you? He was trying to put God in a box and figure out how shall I, how can I associate you with what I already know? Okay. And God told him, bitch, I am that I am. And that's all there is to it. And
Yeah.
so
Yes.
it's
Better quote the scripture, and it is, I am what I am. And that's really it, right? Because the point of even the initiatives around using someone's proper pronouns is about respect. It is about honoring someone's identity, right? And for me, depending on what space I'm in, child, ain't no telling what the pronouns is gonna be. If I'm with my boys, it is whatever, right? And then I'm in society, people see me a certain way, and then that's that. All I'm saying is respect who I am. So anything respectful is what resonates most with me.
right. Cause it's in the tone of voice and in the spirit behind the words. So you could be like, what up, bitch? And mean it with love. And you can be like, oh, hey, girl. And mean it with all the pettiness and vileness
Ooh,
that you could contrive. And when you hate that bitch, you're like, hey, girl. So it's not really in the word, but it's in the heart behind it more than anything.
absolutely. Absolutely. Because the shade is real. You can notice the shade, okay?
Ooh, shade of it all. Ooh, should have brought my
Right.
plaque.
You don't have it, but I see it. Okay. You don't got it, but I see it.
I keep one in my glove compartment, just in my car, just in case I need it somewhere, and I got several in the house.
So does my wife. Lord, all the things.
Speaking of that, yeah, in your bio, it says you are a daughter, a wife, a sister, and a friend who loves cooking and running. What I wanted to know from you about the wife, how did it feel? I want to know, how did it feel to be married? Did you have any struggles and things like that? I don't meet a whole lot of married women. I don't. So talk to me about that whole process.
Yeah, we just celebrated our 5-year wedding anniversary. We've been together for 9 years. It's like when I met her, my mama loved her, okay. And I don't like the ideas of or the statements around like someone completes me. I was done and completed, but she just adds so much to my life. She's just such a sweet and kind person. And she just fit right in with my family. It was like she had always been there. Everybody embraced her and I love her. So she's my best friend. She is the ultimate diva. Okay. She is the most high film woman I have ever dated in my life. But she balances me out and I just love her to pieces.
Yeah, opposites attract like that. I learned that when I was in my hypnotherapy class, training to be a licensed hypnotist, which I am. You know, there's all kinds of science behind why quiet conservative people attract more c- outgoing people, you know, and vice versa. If you're too much alike, you tend to repel each other. You know, to put it simply, my boyfriend's the same way. He's a quiet fucking nerd. Okay. Right fucking nerd. I'm the one swinging from the poles and the chandeliers and hitting the splits and, you know, all of that, you know, showing up, you know, shutting the shit down and everything. And he can even talk to some, he's not necessarily the most comfortable talking to people in public. You know, when I walk in the bitch, I own the room. All of the y'alls belong to me until I leave this bitch.
Okay. And let me tell you, so I turn on when a microphone is in front of me, but other than that, I don't have to say a word to anybody. Okay. Yes, my wife is the same way. She walk into a room, she's a stylist. She just takes up space. Okay. She takes up space. You can't miss her. And she also sells eyewear. All right. So the kidcollection.com. So she sells custom eyewear. And so every time she walk into a room, somebody is taking something off her face, off her wrist, wants something. And she is the life of the party.
Show me that website again and I'll put it in the show notes.
Oh yeah, the kayacollection.com. KAYAKOLLECTION. So the kayacollection.com.
Okay, so like kocollection.com. All right, I'll drop that shit in the show notes for show, yo.
Appreciate you.
And I also heard what you said about how you were complete before you met her. This is something
Mhm.
I concur with. None of this person completes me. I'm lost without you. I can't, oh, bitch, you better know who you are before you get into a relationship with somebody. And a lot of that has to do with just spirituality and shit like that. I think so many relationships end because people lose sight of their own individual identity in the whole process. And if you're not in tune with who you are, you're not going to be able to truly cater to that other person. You know, you got to be whole first.
100%. And let's also be clear, we all been broken, right? So I ain't coming over here like I woke up like this. Therapy saved my life. Right? Therapy saved my life. We've all had tough and challenging relationships that have taken you all types of places that you never thought you would go. And at some point, you have to like do some self reflection like, is it me? Maybe it's me. And you got to own that. You have to own that. Otherwise, you'll continue to date the same person over and over again in a different body with a different sign and all types of stuff. And that was my reality. I had realized that I was dating the same person over and over again. I'm like, what is wrong with you? And so quickly checked myself into therapy and it saved my life. And so when my wife came into my life, I didn't need completing at that point. I was very clear about who I was and who I am. And she was just like the perfect fit into my life. So now we have our life with our puppy and man, grateful.
So when you say you checked yourself into therapy, are you being general in that, saying you started seeing a therapist, or did you check into a residential treatment?
Oh, saying it in general, like I started seeing a therapist. And I've seen a few over my life. And actually just I'm about to start seeing a new one. And I think therapy is one of these things where you can choose to be in it for a really long time with the same person, but sometimes you even grow out of your therapist. And so sometimes you have to shift and sometimes you don't need it anymore. And sometimes you got to restart it because life be doing a lot of living. And we just went through what, 2 years of an airborne pandemic. And if you're listening to this, that means you survived it too. And so none of us are the same as we were in 2019. There's no way you're the same person. So I think that there's seasons. And so I'm in a season where I got a lot going on. So I'm about to go see another therapist. And it's just if you've never done it, it's just a refreshing opportunity to talk to someone who is not fully engaged in your life, but can offer an outside an outside viewpoint that is often not it's not critical, it's not judging, right? You find somebody that works with you that you can vibe with, and you'll find yourself lighter after leaving there, clearer maybe about something you're struggling with. And for me, it saved my life.
What kind of therapist do you see? A licensed clinical social worker?
Yeah, l licensed clinical social worker and a Black woman. Those
I
are
find I find the LCSWs to be more like down to earth. Instead, like a psychologist, because an LCSW is not prescribing medication, so they're
right.
actually the only way they can help you is through the words and the talking and the exercises and the practices they can give you to take home.
Yes.
So I see an LCSW. I see a licensed marriage and family therapist together with my boyfriend.
Mhm.
Been together for, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years, some shit. I don't keep up with the damn time. You have to ask him. I'm bad with birthdays and just general time because I view things more eternal. I don't believe in time constraints. It always has existed and it always will in a way. And so and then I see my hypnotherapist individually. And I love hypnotherapy because of how focused it is and how it gets into the subconscious and how you rip out what you don't want and you speak back to your open, vulnerable mind what you do want. And so I particularly use that to help me stay off of drugs. And so, all right.
Mhm.
So that is our plug for mental health because we know that is something that's lacking in both the color community and in the gay community. It is not a strike to your pride if you want to go talk to somebody about getting help. There's many different types of therapists. That's why I asked her that. If you go to one therapist and they're a fucking piece of shit, then fuck that help. Go to somebody else. Maybe you need a different type of therapy. There's all sort of new age metaphysical shit out there from hypnotherapy, stellar constellations, all kinds of mind, body, soul meditation shit. If you don't want to do traditional therapy, you can do the shit over Zoom now. There's all kinds of shit. So whatever it is you think mental health is, if you have a bad taste in your mouth about it, I ask you to revisit it and take a second look at it because like Anna said, we all have been fucked up. And so you need help to get unfucked up and to get an objective perspective so you don't keep getting in fucked up relationships and sabotaging yourself. So just humble yourself down and go get some help, baby. And look, no one has to know. These therapists are bound by confidentiality. So it's not like they can go put it on social media that you were in treatment or they would get their license taken and probably go to jail. So it's a secret. Nobody, nobody, nobody has to know.
That's right. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So there is so much information out here right now in promoting and making awareness, mental health awareness a thing this month. So you just one Google search away.
Just one Google search away. So, a quote that you had, you said it is your favorite quote. You said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. And that was by Gandhi. Tell me what this quote means to you.
That nothing is easy. And that you can't be waiting for people to validate who you are or validate your idea or validate what you call to do. It is not about that. You know, people gonna go along for the ride. You have to be clear about what you want to do. And I think that along the way, you're going to encounter different people. I'm building a business. I don't come from a whole lot. I come from a whole lot of love. And so, but we got a lot of things and a lot of people I talk to, a lot of asks and requests. I take a lot of leaps of faith. I have to keep practicing my faith muscle and building up my faith muscle and what it means to take risks. And along the way, I'm going to run into people that don't agree with me, who don't believe what I'm doing, who don't see a market for it, who don't see a need for it. And honestly, like when we make it, that's when everybody want to be down. So for me, that quote by Gandhi just resonates a lot with what it means to be on the journey and not and for me, it's not caring so much about the destination because to your point, like, I feel like things just will continue to be, but it's about enjoying the journey. And that quote reminds me that it's a journey, that it's not just gonna be one thing or another thing. It's all the things.
All of them, each and every last one of them. I love the friction that comes along when people try to repel us, though. I believe it helps to mature us and it helps to refine us, like when a moth or a butterfly is trying to crawl out of that chrysalis after they've been a caterpillar. That struggle helps to release the blood flow and whatever juices are in their little furry bodies to expand their wings. That struggle is needed. They cannot become what they are to be without the problems. And, and so I'm thankful for all the Karens, for all the church people who told us we had to get out, and everything like that. For the people who told us since we were black, we can't stay there and stuff like that. When I read that, I thought about how I got kicked out of Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas for not being straight. But eventually I'm gonna get the victory over them. Cause I've been when they kicked me out, this was like 2008, 2009, and I just finished my book and I went into great detail about how I felt about all that. It took me over 10 years, but I finally clapped back. I finally clapped back. And so,
Sure.
and
And
so
you win.
I will win. Yes.
You are winning. You are winning. You've already won. The victory's yours. You already know.
Amen and amen. Okay. So then I'm curious about what do you think some of the top issues are facing just the lesbian community today?
Hmm.
And while you're thinking about that, I noticed some of your top lesbian moments when I was researching you. I would agree with Queen Latifah from Set It Off.
Yes, honey. That is number one of all time. And you know what? I would argue anybody down there say that ain't the number one black lesbian moment in film because she was studied out and girl, okay, lap dances, it was everything. Okay, it's a freaking classic. Queen Latifah is number one. And she didn't even have to be out. She out now, but she didn't have to be out. She is out to us anyway. So that was actually a really fun video to do. And I'll probably do another one because so many people wrote in some of their favorite black lesbian moments that I had not even thought about again, or that people didn't tell me about because I asked my friends. So for example, Lena Wade commented and she was like, what about when Tasha came out on the L word? And I was like, dang, that was a pivotal moment because L word had been so white up until that point. And then Tasha show up and just wreck the crew. And I was just like, dang, you're right. So I'll probably do another video. But I think for lesbians, some of the major challenges is still representation. And I think there is a lot of invisibility happening with lesbians. So there's a podcast called Cruising, which on this podcast, but there's a podcast called Cruising. And they have it's like three lesbians going across the country and they are going to all of the last lesbian bars. And so there's 60,000 bars across the country and there's only 25 lesbian bars, 25 lesbian owned bars across the whole country. And so they did a whole podcast traveling around the country and visiting these bars. So I think that there is a great need for visibility of lesbians, not only in media, but just in life in general, you know? And I think lesbians often can kind of get lost in the South. So similar to how people feel like there's some invisibility with bisexuals in the community. Right now, I think, a lot of trans folks get a lot of press because there is a political onslaught happening from right wing conservatives politically. And it doesn't mention, gay folks or lesbian folks or bisexual folks. It specifically mentions trans folks. And I think that definitely a sector of lesbians who feel like they have been left behind. Often also because we use the word queer these days and no one really uses the word lesbian. So I know that there's some lesbians out there that just feel like they've been left somewhere in the 80s. And I think it's a challenge for them in that respect. With all that being said, if one of our alphabet mafia is, as you put it, okay, it's being attacked, then we all being attacked. If we all don't have freedom, then none of us have freedom. So I think that some of what I hear as lesbian concerns, aren't really concerns at all. I think it is fear. And I think that when our trans fam is experiencing right now, what they are experiencing right now affects every single last one of us.
So when you say someone says it's a lesbian concern and it's not really a concern, it sounds like you're speaking about hate and ignorance.
Well, it might be a problem for them. It's not a problem for me. I
You
think
can
that
be who you are.
I think it's just people being who they are. And I think that people evolve and I think that terms evolve. And so I think there are people who are lesbians who identify with a very strict definition of what it means to be a lesbian. I think there's people who identify with a very strict definition of what it means to be gay. Men who love men, women who love women. Like these are very particular definitions. Like that is it and that is all, right? And then we're coming upon a time, I feel like we're living in a time where there is sexual fluidity. And so and I can speak for myself, and I statements are so helpful in these moments. It's like I came out as a lesbian, but at the end of the day, today I identify as queer because child, I love a lot of things, okay? And it's not just women or cis women, okay? It's just not. And so I needed an expansive word. I needed an expansive definition outside of lesbian to identify with. So I think oftentimes people get caught up in what they always known or anything like or stuff like that. But at the end of the day, things evolve, people evolve, terms evolve, communities evolve. And I also think that if there is one major issue affecting lesbians today, it is just continues to be a lack of representation and visibility, especially for masculine centered lesbians. I mean, femme lesbians, their level of visibility is a whole nother story, right? I've had femmes tell me like I intentionally date, masculine or center women so people know that I am a lesbian. I don't want you to think I'm straight. And for masculine or center women, there is there's an appearance that outs you when you walk out the house. So, visibility on a grander scale is still not there. Even though there's a different level of acceptance, I believe, for lesbians than there are even for gay men. I think gay men have a whole other struggle that around masculinity, especially in this country, that it's just really different than the lesbian experience. I've talked about a friend I grew up with, a gay guy who was very flamboyant, right? We was cool. He had to come to school with a knife, right, in his shoe. He never left home without a knife underneath the sole of his shoe. That was not my story. I never felt unsafe. He always felt unsafe. And I think at the core of it, I mean, there's so much to be said around the differences between a male identified experience and a woman identified experience within the LGBTQ community.
Let's talk about these experiences in the church. So
Church.
in researching you, there is some Lutheran Baptist history here. Talk to us about how you grew up in church.
Oh man, my mom and my daddy met at church. So my dad has been a teacher for 40 years and he was teaching at a private Lutheran school where my mom had enrolled my sister. So my sister is 17 years older than me. And so my mom enrolled my sister there, and then they started a love affair, which they had to keep on the low because the teachers weren't supposed to be dating the parents. The parents weren't supposed to be dating the teacher's child. But either way, uh,
Glory, glory, hallelujah.
you know, and let me tell you, 40 years later, they still at the same church. Okay, so they landed at a Black Lutheran church on the south side of Chicago. And so that's where I grew up. But my dad's side of the family started a missionary Baptist church also on the south side of Chicago. So I would often have two Easter speeches. Okay. We would often end up going to two different churches on Sundays because my family was at that church. My uncles, my aunts, my grandma, I mean, everybody was at Christian Love Missionary Baptist Church, right? And so we would, times are always different too with Black church. So Lutherans start at a bright and early 10 a.m. Okay. And we was done in 60 minutes strong, maybe 75 on Communion Sunday. Baptist church was just getting started about 11, and praise and worship go about 30 minutes. And so by the time we get there, we still at the beginning of the service. So with a lot more shouting to go. So it was definitely two very different religious experiences growing up, to which I think just kind of tells a lot about my life in general. The dichotomies between I'd be one place at one moment and be in a total different place in another moment. I could be in some highfalutin place one moment, and then I could be in the projects the next moment. All of it made sense to me for where I was in my life. But church, church was a good time.
So you're a preacher's kid, and you say that would explain why you a freak and you call yourself queer into all things. Yeah, them PKs, them preacher's kids, they be freaky deaky.
We get into some things. We get into some things. Now, see, my dad, so he's a deacon, but at the end of the day, he could preach anywhere, and he does preach all the time. And he just, for Lutherans, you got a lot of rules and regulations. And so he never went back to get that final piece, but he has his master's in divinity and all this stuff. So yeah, child, Sundays, Wednesdays, Saturdays in church.
Yeah, that's how I was growing up Pentecostal. Wednesday, Bible band this night, deliverance service this night, another service that night. When I was at Lakewood, I was there 4 nights a week, choir practice Tuesday night, Wednesday night, kids worship leading and teaching, Saturday night, kids life choir, Sunday choir. I think I think we get like addicted to church before we realize we are.
Church is a big part, right? If you grow up in the church, it's a big part of your identity.
Hmm.
It's your community, it's your family. And my home church, where my parents still go, is home. They have always loved me, always embraced me. I've never been anything that I'm not there. But I have my own thoughts around religion and religious organizations. So joining the Missouri Synod is not an option for me because they don't see me as a whole person. So for me, it goes beyond the church. It's about the religious organization, right? But it defines so much. And that's why when queer folks get rejected from church, it is incredibly impactful and can really damage and cause harm because the first couple of places you learn how to love is at home and at church. And that's oftentimes the two places you spend the most time. And so when one or both turn their back on you as a human being, you are not the same person you were before. It leads you down a path that it it destroys you, period, point blank. It destroys you. And a lot of my work over the years has been around dismantling that and telling the truth about it. That Jesus never said one thing about gay people. Not one. Jesus never said it. Now, these clobber scriptures and everything else, I mean, the Bible is meant to be interpreted. It's meant to be understood. It's meant to be put into context. And the way folks have picked and chosen what they want to and who they want to damn to hell is is the most ungodlike thing they can absolutely ever do. And back in the day, I did this project with this organization called Church Within a Church, where we did a video 30-day, released a new video every 30 days called My God is Not a Bully, to just emphasize that point that God is not bullying anybody. It's the people in the pulpit that are, and their lack of interpretation of scripture and context of scripture. So the church means a lot to me. Actually, as part of the Qube, we are releasing our own content as part of the Qube. And one of our podcasts, first podcast, is called Second Sunday. And I cannot wait for y'all to hear this podcast because it's talking about the intersections of being Black, queer, and in the church. And we had the opportunity to interview a lot of Black, queer theologians, lay people, musicians for this podcast, and the things that they share, child. It's just, it humanizes an experience that gets polarized a lot. And I hope I hope folks can get seen through this work.
Yeah, I was at a graduate at the Houston Graduate School of Theology in, of course, Houston, Texas. But I was going to get a Master's of Divinity as well. When you said that, it popped
Mm.
out my ears. But I left that bitch. I broke up.
Mhm.
I broke up from that bitch when the law professor said that they like to control people in church. And so I was like, well, I come here to dominate motherfuckers, so I'll be going now. And so let me get more. I want to get more granular with your perspective because I watched that video, one of the God is not a bully
Mm.
videos, and I agree with what you're saying. And it's at the epicenter of my message to people. I preach spiritual independence and people getting close to God on their own without a church or with one. But if you're going to have a church, remember that it's second to God. And so you bring up, okay, so you're talking about like how the people are using the scripture to throw shade at people who are unlike them and how scriptural interpretation is very subjective, and it is. Everybody can read the Bible and come out of it with what they want. It's clearly not an easy to understand book because if it was simple to interpret, then you wouldn't need 1,000 different translations of it. And so, I mean, and so since people are indoctrinated in such a young age, at churches, you understand you go there to learn, but critical thinking about what the preacher is saying is not what's taught to you. And so you're accepting whatever is being said. And by the time you're old enough to know any difference, you got all of these issues to sort out. And then you feel conflicted about it because you've been told never to disagree with a preacher or a church. But now you're like, the shit don't make sense though. And
Mhm.
so we, Ann and I, are here to tell you that you will not burn up and go to hell for not being straight. And to all the straight people, and I mean that loosely because you never know what the hell people are not doing behind closed doors. I didn't fuck so many straight married men in my day, it's unreal. And so, just know that while they're trying to use these scriptures over here to condemn you to hell, since they want to be so strict about the Bible and everything, the Bible speaks against getting divorced for any reason other than infidelity. It speaks against interracial couples and stuff like that. Stuff that we're all totally cool with now. Them people in church got 50,000 divorces for all kind of reasons and all kinds of mixed racial shit going on. And I'm cool with all of it. But my whole point is this: if you're going to be such a hard ass about one part, you need to be a hard ass about the whole fucking thing. I don't want to see you eating nothing that divided the hoof. I don't want you getting down with the pigs or nothing like that. If you're gonna be that much of a bitch about it, then follow the whole fucking thing from end to end and not just a few slices of it.
And that's what they do, right? Those Christians, them so-called Christians, because they not Christians. Some so-called Christians, they use it for whatever they feel like they want to use it for, and they cause a lot of freaking harm, and they're causing harm right now. And now it's entered the political realm, you know. And we need more folks like you. We need more projects that tell queer folks and LGBTQ young people that you still love, that God still loves you, that your relationship with God is far more important than whatever this preacher is saying from a pulpit. I also think critical thought is so incredibly important when you understand that there are books missing from the Bible, right? When you understand that what you're reading is not the entire canon. Like, what what are we doing here, people? What are we doing here? And I also think it's easy to make God this very angry, damning person and being, when in fact, that was not what God taught at all. That's not what God taught at all.
He's not. He's a God of mercy and grace, forgiveness, long suffering, slow to anger, quick to mercy, quick to compassion. That's what the scriptures say. He's not like man, quick to judge and clobber you. And what you speak of about getting kicked out from churches and how it changes you, it's what I call being dehumanized. It makes you feel like you're less than a person when a church tells you you have to go, not because of something you've done. What church is never supposed to tell anyone to go no matter what. Jesus accepted murderers and everybody. So for a church to be like, you can't go because of who you love, which is what Lakewood Church did to me, you can't there, that sent me on a downward spiral that ultimately led me into drugs, into drug dealing, into getting hepatitis B and HIV. My choice to do what I did, but they certainly were the spark that set that shit in motion. And fuck
Mm,
them. I would
mhm.
like to say fuck you, Lakewood Church. And
On repeat.
we can dub stuff that shit.
Yes. Yeah.
So in the video, you also said you made a comparison about how, okay, say like procreation. One of the arguments people use against the non-straight community is that God hates what you're doing because when you have sex, you can't, there's no kids gonna
Mhm.
come of it. And then you were like, okay, well, there's straight couples that God has prevented them from having children. So is that because he hates them too? It's not you can't apply that sort of a rubric evenly. You can't do it. And then you were also saying you said, something very interesting to me. You said that you wouldn't choose another burden, and you were like, "I'm already Black. That's hard enough as it is. Do I really wanna add queer to it and all the problems that come along in this life?" In that statement, you're rebutting the stupid shit like I heard Joyce Meyer and whoever the fuck else say that where they think it's a choice. Like we just, "Oh, well, I think we'll be gay today," or some stupid shit like that. That is the most overly simplistic, dumbass shit these supposedly educated people say.
100%. And I think that that's at the core of it. And I was talking to somebody recently whose child just came out to them like a year or so ago. And I was just like, we have to start the conversation at choice, with choice, because if you believe what I'm doing is a choice, then we're not going to get very far. Because at the heart of homophobia is this idea that you can change, hence why conversion therapy, right? Has been such a popular way for Christians to change people because you don't think it's a choice, because you think it's a choice. But in fact, it's not. In fact, I I grew up with my mama put me in bows and matching ruffle socks, okay? And doing everything in her power to raise a feminine girl. And in fact, I was who I was from the moment I had any say over it. It's just not who I was. And I was very clear about that from a very young age. I was very clear I was athletic. Does that make me gay? No. But I was also very clear I liked wearing my dad's shirts. And my dad and I have the same initials. And he gets his shirts embroidered with his initials on them. And I wanted to wear his shirts. I was not going to wear my mother's dresses. I didn't want nothing to do with heels. I didn't want nothing to do with pantyhose. It just wasn't who I was, and it's not who I am. And so I think all these conversations around homophobia and transphobia and hate come around the idea that who we are is a choice and who we are is not a choice in the same ways who they are, you know, innately is not a choice.
That do be facts though, because if they're gonna apply that logic to us, then it has to go in reverse. And I, like you, when I was 2, 3 years old, I was already playing with Ken dolls, trying to see what was up under his shorts and shit like that. So, but if it's a choice, then when did they pick to be straight? And then if that's the case, are they confessing that they had homosexual desires at some point? The way they tell it, they've been straight from the beginning. So if that's the case, It's uneven, but it's like anything else, from your favorite food to your favorite color. Life is a thing of discovery. We do not get to put ourselves together like a doll or made out of Play-Doh. You don't get to go, my favorite color is going to be green. My favorite dish is going to be lobster. My favorite state, I think I'll go with Kentucky. My favorite shoes, I think band sounds nice. You know, you get exposed to shit, and then you pay attention to what keeps standing out to you and what keeps drawing you in, and then you go, "Oh, it seems like I'm into the color green," or, "Oh, I think I really, really like these fucking bands. They represent me well." You discover who you
Yeah.
are. The beginnings of who you are is shaped when you're in your mother's womb. Everywhere she goes, the things she says, the people she talks to, the things she thinks, reads, exposes that child to everything. You cannot separate the two. So you're predisposed to so much before you're even born. So for them fuckers to be like, well, you chose to be gay, it goes against science and all logic, and they're just stupid as hell.
Pretty much. Pretty much. And what's really unfortunate is that I see that there can be a differentiation. So let me give you an example. Like, you can believe that being queer is wrong, right? You can believe that. But that should not equate to me not having the rights as a citizen within a country that I pay taxes in. Does that make sense? So for me, politics shapes society. So you can think being gay is wrong, but that doesn't mean you have the right to limit my rights, to control who I love, control if I can get married, control if I can get medical care, control what books I read. You ought not have that type of control in my life just because you don't agree with who I am. I don't agree with you being a white, racist, homophobic, transphobic person, right? Right. But I ain't trying to write like legislation to kill off your human existence, right? Because that is exactly the fact of the matter, is that what's happening across the country right now is killing trans youth. The numbers, the suicide hotlines like the Trevor Project, they are outrageous right now, right? People are trying to leave states where they have had homes and families and a legacy because their children can't get the medical care they need because now politicians are saying that parents don't know what's best for their own children. How dare you, just because you don't believe in who I am? And I think it's just so incredibly contradictory because they don't want anyone telling them who they are or what they should be doing, you know?
If it's any consolation, these people are the hypocrites of our day. You had them in Jesus' time.
Mm.
I agree with what you said earlier, how the Bible is not complete. Some people will say everything you need to know about life is in the Bible. That's bullshit. It's a general, it's a general guide to help get you close enough to God so you can talk to him for yourself, and then he can instruct you the rest of the way. But everything is not in there. But these Republicans and evangelicals and everything, these are today's hypocrites. Every generation has to have them. There's not going to come a time in this earth until probably the millennial kingdom when Jesus Christ reigns here again. But even it, well, I'm not going to say that, because even then there's going to be people who don't believe in him in the earth. And so there's always going to be those people who are contradictory. These people are like how Saul the apostle was before he became Paul. The thing is, if God doesn't open somebody's eyes to their hypocrisy, then they won't see. If he doesn't open their ears to hear truth, they won't hear. They won't believe and be converted. Every generation has to have the people who are going to be citizens of hell, bound to go to hell. Because if they have humility and love in their heart, they would go to heaven and they would be with God. You people not going to accidentally end up in hell. You have to be like Pharaoh or somebody and just hard headed, ignoring the signs, not hearing what the people under you are trying to say, not hearing the voice of the people. That's how Pharaoh was. He just would not hear logic and reason because he was so set in his ways and what he wanted other people to do. Now, Saul took his ass to the Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin was the religious council of the day. I think it's like 70 something motherfuckers who control shit. It's no different than legislation today, a whole group of motherfuckers who control shit. He said, look, this is Jesus' person and come here with this bullshit. And these people trying to act like him, and we can't be having none of this. So give me some power, some letters and shit, so I can go arrest their asses and beat them and fuck with them and shit. So we can beat this Jesus out of their asses because this ain't right. It's gonna rip up our moral fabric, and this is gonna tear our society down because of how they believe. And the Sanhedrin's like, go on, player, go on. Now, on his way to Damascus, Jesus intercepted his bitch ass and was like, what you doing? You need to stop this shit because I did not send you. Scripturally speaking, he said, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? It's hard for you to kick against the pricks. And so what do we have here? Somebody who said, those people over there, I don't like what they're doing. So let me enact laws to change them. And the Lord said, I don't want you to do that. That is what the whole beginning, that part of the book of Acts is about. Jesus Christ being against using the law to coerce people to behave differently is right there. Yet when those people, the people of our day, the hypocrites, the Republicans, the evangelicals, if they even read their dusty ass Bibles, I don't see how they can. And when they read the Bible, they read it to find out what's wrong with other people. They are right there. But when they killed Stephen, I'm gonna say this and shut the hell up. But this is a hot button for both of us. When they killed Stephen, the one who said to be the first martyr, he read the religious people for filth. And he told them, you motherfuckers are the same people who killed the prophets and everything like that. While you sitting up here trying to judge me, it was a whole long chapter in Acts. And then they stoned him to death and everything like that. So these things must be so.
And I think so, child, you just said so much. There's so much to say. I think at the heart of it also is that the theology, like your own spiritual connection to God is can be so expansive. So the to your point, right? The Bible is one thing, but then right, Christians will tell you that all these you shouldn't even explore these other religions. They can't give you nothing. Like, no, you can't get nothing out of nothing out of these none of these other spaces. And I think to myself, like, I thought God created everything. I thought God created everything. And if God created everything, then God is in everything. And and I find myself having a very expansive worldview about God and my beliefs. Like, so growing up, you're taught that if someone commits suicide, they go into hell. And I was thinking, and then as I grew up, I was like, why would God send anybody to hell for committing suicide? And where does it say that in the Bible? And it doesn't, right? We just we fed these things out of fear to control you to not commit suicide. But who in the world told you that? When I think about this, the preachers and spiritual teachings that like folks around the world, anyone who doesn't call Jesus by name as their Lord and Savior is going to go to hell. How is that possible when there's people in the other countries in the world who don't even know who Jesus is? So you're telling me that this God of love is going to send somebody that haven't had an opportunity to get to know who Jesus was? That doesn't make any sense to me. And I think that when for me, when because of my sexual identity, it caused me to have to question a whole hell of a lot of stuff. Definitions of what heaven is, definitions of what hell is, definitions of who's going and who's not. You begin to question all of it. And for me, when it boils down, and I love it when my mom says this to people about me, when she would tell me this all the time. She'd be like, have you read your 10 commandments recently? I don't see nothing in there about God, about gay people, you know, but I see a whole lot of other stuff that applies to you. Hello. So my mom, she got to the point where she was empowered enough to, stand up and say something and speak out about that. And I think that we need more people to do just that. Cause they ain't gonna say it to me. They gonna say it to their friend who they think agreed with them. So I just think we have a long way to go to understand what it means to embody and to embody a God-like existence because it has so much more to do with love and choice than anything else.
I was like you, very well said, girl. I was like you, very confused and conflicted about myself because of what the church said. The only thing that gave me peace was learning how to read the scripture for myself. I went back to the original Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic, the original
Wow.
the Bible, and discovered it for myself.
Yes.
What I want people to do. Because any translation you read, King James, a Message, or whatever, the Living Bible, those are all other people's translations. That's not the actual original language. And so if you want the true truth, then you got to go back to the source. You got to go back to the original languages. Other than that, you get into somebody else's version.
That and you have to I think you gotta find your own practice. So you have to find what that practice looks like for you, especially when you feel disconnected from church, because church was a practice. Sunday, Saturday, Wednesday, however many times we were there a week, that was a practice. So as if you feel yourself pulling away from that, then you have to figure out what your practice look like. And so today, like my practice looks like me being in my prayer corner in the mornings with my affirmation books, with my journals, with my candle, with my music, with pictures of my family. Like from me growing up, like it is being grounded and quiet and close to God in those moments. That's my practice today. And I feel closer to God than I ever have. I see signs all the time. I think numerology is real. Like if something profound happens, I'm like, what time is it? I think I think there's so many ways to connect with God. And when you choose to close yourself off to all the possibilities and all the possibilities of who God is, you will miss her. You gonna miss her. You gonna miss her. That's it.
All right. Um, Let me see here. So we wanted to talk about the cube as we begin to wrap
Mm,
it up. I'm going to read your favorite quote by Shirley Chisholm. I believe she was
oh,
a senator. I think she was the first black woman to put in a bid to be presidentially nominated back in the 70s. And her eyeglasses, honey, her frame game was on point.
yes, indeed.
Match for the gods.
Yes, indeed.
And she said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Now,
Mm,
you go on to say in your it says in your website, we bought our folding chairs and there hasn't been any equity to be found at those tables. It's time for us to build our own tables and our own chairs to this space and model the change we want to see in the world of podcasting.
mm, yes, all of that. So I love Shirley Chisholm. I love everything she stood for. She's made a lot of things possible. And she had to bring her folding chair. Okay, she had to. They weren't inviting her to no tables. She had to bring a folding chair. But because of the work that she did and the fact that we can stand on the shoulders of so many other incredible people of history, from Ella Baker to Angela Davis to Coretta Scott King, I mean, Elaine Brown, I could go on and on. We can build our own tables. We don't have to wait on anyone to do anything for us. Should Apple be more inclusive? Yes. Should Spotify be more inclusive? Yes, they should. But it is not about what they should do because capitalism rules this country. So if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense in so many ways in that world. But we have an opportunity to do something different. And I think we have an opportunity to shape especially the podcasting space because I feel like it's still very much so a new medium. I believe it's coming into its own after 20 years. And that's why I like new is like so it's such a funny thing to say because it's been 20 years. But for so many people, they are just really getting into what it could mean to listen to a podcast. And we can shape what we want this world to see. And I wanted to see more diversity. I want to see more people like me. And I wasn't finding them. And so the Cube will be that. It will be the one and only curated destination of music and podcasts by BIPOC and QTPOC folks. And the music is powered by our radio station, E3 Radio, which plays queer music and reports on queer news in high rotation, specifically at the intersections of race and sexuality. So there's so many queer artists out here doing their thing and you don't hear about them. There's so many of them making good music. I got one of my favorite inspirational artists is a Black queer woman who was on Sunday Best, Maya B. You don't know her, you know? Like, they deserve a space to be. And then there's, like, dope podcasters like you who deserve to be seen, who deserve more visibility, more amplification of your work, and I think we can do it. As a matter of fact, I know we can do it. We are doing it, and I think we can do it really, really well. So it's gonna be an app. We're in development. My goal, my hope is that we are dropping beta in July and totally out to the public by September of this year. We've accepted 94 podcasts into the app. We've got a team of folks listening to every single piece of podcast content because we want the best podcasters inside of our app. I want the best because there's a lot of poorly produced podcasts in the market. People who sound like they got their iPhone on top of a roof on their fourth bottle of wine, okay? And that's okay. That's okay. You can do that. You got something to say. You better go say it, okay? But it don't have to be what's in my ears. It doesn't have to be what's inside this app. I want this app to be where the best reside. And that's what resonates with me. And that's what we're building.
Yeah, I was listening to somebody's podcast earlier who's trying to come on my show and be a guest, and I was like, "God, I can't hear what you're saying. You sound muffled." So, yeah, it's out there. So I thank you for your compliments. It's just y'all, the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast has been accepted to the Cube, so
Yes.
our quality is on point enough for these standards. And so I'm going to read a little bit further. So it says the Cube is majority owned by a Black queer woman and co-founded by 3 Black LGBTQ persons. The Cube will be a centralized destination for discovery of BIPOC and QTPOC music and podcasts. Tell us what the BIPOC and QTPOC stands for.
Absolutely. BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, People of Color. And I choose to say BIPOC because I lead with my Blackness. And so I choose to say Black, Indigenous, People of Color. And then I choose to identify queer trans people of color specifically, even though we inside the BIPOC, we in there. But I think it's important for queer folks to know that I'm talking about them, that this platform is also for them, that I want to be able to center and amplify their work as well. And so that's why I include QTPOC into the narrative. Now, is my marketing team happy about that? No. Okay, it's a lot of words, it's a lot of acronyms. People don't know what the heck I'm talking about. But the people, the people who know, right? And so, at the end of the day, I'm in this accelerator right now with Google, which is really dope. It's the Google for Startups, like Founders Academy. And one of the mentors was like, I need 5 words to describe your business. You should be able to describe your business in 5 words. And I was like, God dang it. And so I came up with discover the best BIPOC podcast, right? If I had to describe it in 5 words, discover the best BIPOC podcast is what I came up with. And so that's what it all means. At the end of the day, it's about discovery. You will be able to listen to these podcasts inside of the app, and I hope people would choose to do that as well. There's an opportunity for folks to tip their creators from within the app, and that money would go straight to those creators. And I'm excited about that. The moment we get enough users, we'll be able to roll out an ad revenue sharing program, right? So we could put more money into creators' pockets who do want to make money from advertising. And, I think we just continue to build this platform in this space for folks to discover some of the amazing ways that Black, brown, and queer folks of color show up in the world. And I think podcasting is a space that people are choosing to share their experiences with the world, the same way you share yours. I think I know there's a lot of people doing that, and you just can't find them.
Up until now, because now
Hey,
you,
we got the cue.
you baby.
Yeah.
All right. So just any last words you have for the world, any community, whatever you want to say, you can say what the fuck you feel.
I love that. I can say whatever the fuck I feel. I feel like we're in a moment right now. So I feel like we've survived a pandemic, and it feels like the world is restarting in some ways. And I feel like we've got an opportunity here to change the way we do media. And podcasting has an opportunity to show folks how to do media. Collaboration, right? I think we can show what it means to be a community inside of a media industry. I think podcasting has an opportunity to do it differently than what and how things have been done in the past. And so I hope that I hope that I can be part of that change. There are so many amazing people in this space doing amazing work, our partners, and my hope is that I can amplify them as well. So when we talk about the Black Podcasters Association, when I think about the Women of Color Association, when I think about the BIPOC Podcast Creators Group, when I think about Twyla Dank, I mean, it's just a number of people who are seeking to create equitable opportunities inside the podcasting space. And we haven't seen that in any other medium. So we have to be the change we want to see in the world. We have to be. And this is where I am choosing to make my impact. This is where I feel like I've been called to make an impact. And so if you're listening to this and this sparks your interest, if you like, I'm down with Anna, hey, I would love for you to go visit our website, theqube.app, TheQube.app, and sign up for our newsletter so you're one of the first people to know when the app drops. And I hope that you enjoy what we're building, and I hope that you choose to join the journey with us. To your point, it's like this is a long-term game. This isn't like we turn on the app and then problems is fixed. No, we're in this for the long haul to see significant changes in media, and we're starting with podcasting.
Very well said. And also, Anna's other website is DeShawn.com, ANNADESHAWN. Both of these links for the Qube and DeShawn.com will go in the showy notes, as I always do. And then, Anna, we will have you back on in several months after the app drops so that we can get an update from you. Thank you. Thank you so fucking much for coming on and spread your sunshine to the world today.
I appreciate you so much for having me. This has been a blast.
Thank you all so much for taking time to listen to the Sex, Drugs, and Jesus podcast. It really means everything to me. Look, if you love the show, you can find more information and resources at sexdrugsandjesus.com or wherever you listen to your podcast. Feel free to reach out to me directly at devannon@sexdrugsandjesus.com and on Twitter and Facebook as well. My name is DeVannon. It's been wonderful being your host today. And just remember that everything is going to be all right.